Hey, welcome to a Sam Girl retrospective. This podcast has been years in the making, like literally over a decade. I'm your host, Audrey, and we have a few other Sam fans on kind of as a revolving door throughout the series. So let me tell you a little bit about us. We are a group of friends who met online via Tumblr literally about 11 years ago because of the show Supernatural. We were all watching at the same time, kind of, and then entered like the fandom space, specifically Tumblr, which is a roller coaster of a place to be in a fandom, especially about 10 years ago. And we all kind of entered that space at the same time and found each other because our favorite character was Sam Winchester. And so that character brought us together. And we have a lot to say about that, him and that show. Me and these people, we still talk daily in our Sam chat, our group chat. We've wanted to discuss this show from a Sam point of view on a podcast for years, and we just never have gotten around to it. So we finally made it happen right now. It's new, so there are some sound issues, but we're working through them. I think by episode 6, everything should be worked out. So just bear with us for a little bit. It's been a blast. We're rewatching every episode from the beginning of the series, discussing it from a point of view of Sam fans, because we all are Sam fans, and then we're just kind of going from there. We have a fun little Sam fan friendly rating system to rate each episode, and then visuals for each pod episode and the discussion we have therein will be posted to our Instagram. That will be linked in the show notes, so that if anybody's interested in going on and following us on Instagram and seeing some of the visuals of what we've discussed and the ratings, that will also be in there. You guys can do that. The term Sam Girls is what we used to call ourselves when we would live blog together, run together online when we first met, and we would talk about the show week to week. That's why it's in the title. But this pod is a female-led, queer, neurodivergent space, and we hope anyone and everyone who enjoys the show and loves Sam feels welcome and safe listening. So without further ado, any more blah, 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 let's just get into season 1, episode 1 of Supernatural, the pilot. We're doing it!
Do you have an intro or anything for this?
I mean, honestly, no. We get to kind of decide how it's going to begin.
Oh, that's so much pressure.
I know. I mean, this is Sam, Supernatural, Sam Girl, retrospective. What did we call it? What did I call it?
Sam Girl. Wait.
I think I called it Sam Girl retrospective.
I think you did.
But we are, this is the pilot of Supernatural that I am going to talk about. I'm your host, Audrey. This is Elle. We are
Hello.
Yes. I can't believe this is real. Okay.
It's finally happening.
We've been talking about doing this for like minimum 2 years. But literally for almost the duration of our friendship, like have always wanted to do this. So I'm so excited we're actually getting to do this. We need to talk about when we each kind of individually started watching Supernatural, how we knew that Sam was for us, was our guy. And then kind of like we want to discuss our entrance into the fandom because everyone's entrance is a little bit different. So let's start there. We're going to get into the pilot in a little bit. We want you guys to get to know who we are first. So Elle, talk to me about, when did you start watching Supernatural?
So, we've been friends for like 10 years or something.
For sure. I started watching in 2013 and we met on Tumblr as I entered, like as soon as I got current.
Yes. And I started watching really right before I met you guys because I was getting into the Tumblr, like trying not to get myself spoiled, while at the same time trying to get every like bit of information I could about one Sam Winchester, without finding out things that were going to spoil me for later. But I watched 7.5 seasons in about 3 weeks. 2 weeks. I remember it being really, really nuts.
So did you get current in the middle of 7?
I got current. I ended up getting current like right at the beginning of 8, I
Okay.
think.
So you were like ahead of me by a year. I got current in the middle of season 9.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I even remember the episode I watched for the first time, like live. It was about Dean and it was a flashback to his childhood and going to camp or something.
That was the first one?
That was the first one I watched,
No.
like on air week to week. I loved it. It had a bunch of new Journey songs, like not new because Journey's old, but like
Right.
Journey songs that I love. So
Wow.
I know.
Okay. Sometimes it's hard to believe like how old this show is
Well,
and how
because
long it ran.
it's the biggest show ever, besides like Grey's Anatomy and like The Simpsons. But like you can literally say, like, I watched it 10 years ago and I was still getting
Uh-huh.
current at season 9. And it still had
Yes.
a long ways to
Yeah.
go before
I
it
started 10 years ago, halfway through the show.
ended. Hmm.
It was already it was only half done. Um,
Insane.
yeah. Um, Man, that's nuts. Yeah, I think I read recently that it's like the longest running sci-fi slash fantasy show.
I can believe that. I can't think of one
Yeah.
that that's longer than that. That has run longer than that.
Yeah, same here.
That's like a genuinely like season to season, and it has 22
Oh
episodes
yeah, these are
every
old
season.
style seasons.
Hmm.
These are traditional seasons with mid-season finales and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. And the
Remember
only
mid-season
oh my
finales?
God. No, I mean honestly, not until you just said it. Forgot. I mean, the only one that is shorter is season 3, and that was because of
Yeah.
the writer's strike that happened in
Yeah.
2007, y'all. That
Oh my
is
God.
so long.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't believe that.
I know it's incredible.
That's wild.
No, I started watching in 2013, like right at the tail end of 2013. So I didn't really get into the fandom until after that when I got current, because I, again, like you, I didn't want to be spoiled. And so let's talk about how we knew we were Sam girls. How
I
early in
was
the
tr
series did you know?
I was trying to think of this, and the only answer that I can come up with is like second one of Jared Padalecki's screen time. Because there's just, for one thing, the like brainy, kind of softer spoken one is generally my type in any show.
Yeah.
And then he's also Jared
Jared
Padalecki.
Padalecki.
So so I was kind of like, great. But also, so I resisted Supernatural a lot.
Yes.
And one of the reasons was because no shade to Jensen Ackles at all. He's great in this show,
Right.
but I had first seen him in Smallville, and I hated every single one
That's
of
right.
what was her name, Lana.
Yeah.
I hated every single one of her boyfriends.
I
I
mean,
could
that's fair.
not.
We wanted her to be with Tom, whatever his name
Tom
was.
Welling, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Another very tall, soft, brainy boy.
I know, I loved him. But yeah, so I was already predisposed to if I was going to gravitate toward one brother, I was predisposed to it not being Dean.
Yeah.
But also I'm drawn to like
That archetype.
that archetype, yeah.
Yeah. You have a type. We all have
Hmm.
types. And
Yeah,
he's your character type. That makes
yeah.
sense. I think I recognized Jared Padalecki and it was like fringe. Like I just knew he existed. And I was like, he's that guy with the long hair and he's pretty. And the first episode I ever saw of Supernatural, my ex-husband was watching the Thor episode from season 8, where he
Oh,
picks up the Thor's
yes, he
hammer.
lifts Thor's hammer.
Yes, and I think I shared this with you guys in the chat today that like one of the best quotes that would draw me in was that they were calling Sam the Rudy Hobbit because he was like giving an impassioned speech, like my favorite Hobbit, my favorite Lord of the Rings character. And I was just like, this is for me, y'all. This is like fully for me. And in season 8, that's like Sam's, I mean, arguably his best hair season. So I was also very intrigued by
Ooh.
that. So when I
Oh.
when I started season 1, I knew Sam. and that he was probably going to be my favorite. But then of course he was, because he's so like tender and soft, and like he's also just very he's intuitive, and he's like sweet. And I
Right.
really like that. Now, I will say I mean, you and me, we are both Tony Stark fans. So like
Oh gosh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
also our archetype we love. I would say Dean falls into that kind of like
I would say so. Yes.
assholery like charm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just
But
like pure like the
yeah,
on pure charisma.
oh, totally. And those, but here's the thing, and I told you this before, no shade to Jensen Ackles. He's stunning, but like at the beginning of the show, I had like face blindness for Jensen Ackles. Like, couldn't remember what he looks like, was just like, when I saw him, I was like, that's him. But I would always just be like, but who's paying attention to that guy when there's
Oh gosh.
Sam Winchester's right there? And I think that is so funny. Like, I think people's brains just kind of like fused together in different ways, because I've talked to people who are Dean girls who are just like, that is the opposite of how I experienced the show. Like, I was just like,
Right.
Jensen Ackles is so beautiful, and I couldn't even spare a thought for Sam. And I was just like,
Right.
we're all
As
different.
right, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I always had this sense from episode one that Sam was the main character, and so
Yes.
I'm watching Sam and the Dean is like an inciting incident, right?
Yes.
So Sam
Yeah.
is the character that the inciting incident
Mhm.
happens to and is the one who has to leave everything and go on the journey. But as you
Mhm.
were saying that about Dean girls who have the opposite experience, I can absolutely see someone being like, okay, yeah, Dean is the actor in the plot causing things to happen.
Right.
So obviously he's the main character. So I can see it both ways. I
Yeah.
really can.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I know that the creator actually did say Sam is like the
Yeah.
guy I wrote the story about.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because of how we will discuss as we go,
Yeah.
like it evolves. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was kind of the reason I couldn't even pay attention to the other guy. Like, I was a Sam girl
Yeah.
from like before I even started.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on Tumblr and you saw like fan edits, you're just like, "Oh, okay, beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
there."
Yeah.
Like, sorry, that's just it's just how I feel. Didn't he also say that Sam was like the not audience surrogate? That's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but like the one the audience is supposed to connect to.
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
like
he did say that. He said he's like the Luke Skywalker of the story. And
yeah.
so like he's the guy that has all this weird stuff happen to him, and he has this special power, and we find out he's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And so he's the person, he's the draw for the
Right.
audience. And I mean, I think it speaks to Jensen's like acting and his charisma, that like he was gonna be like the funny brother, and then he was just really, really good at his job. And
Well,
they were
yeah,
like,
and they're just really really good
they
together.
have
So
so much chemistry.
like especially in the early seasons, it feels like the relationship between them is like the main character
Yes.
almost. Yeah. Like things happen to the relationship. The relationship
Yes.
gets threatened. That, I always said when, I don't know if we're going to get into this, but I always said when I was writing fanfic that you can never imperil the boys because they always come back to life. Spoilers, they
Yeah,
always come back
they
to
do.
life. The thing that you can imperil in any given storyline or plot is their relationship to each other.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, which I
And
think,
I think fan fiction will always be relevant in this conversation.
okay, good, good, good.
We always bring it up anytime you find it to be relevant.
Okay, great. I will.
So when you got caught up, you were like caught up week to week, and you entered the fandom because you were like, now I can't be spoiled. What was your experience like? What happened? And where did you
Okay.
go even?
Okay, so as I think I mentioned, I was on Tumblr at that point. Um,
Tumblr.com.
Tumblr.com is still alive, in our hearts. Um, and apparently in real life.
And online, but not as good as it used to be.
No. Um, so then once I got caught up, I was free to search whatever I wanted to,
Hmm.
right?
Me
Because I
too.
was not worried about getting spoiled. And then I saw people were doing these things called live blogs, and I was like, I'm getting in on that.
Yeah.
I have to do live blogs. And then I I cannot remember how we all met.
Yeah, there's
I
like
don't remember. But
seven of us.
I think I met you first.
That seems right. I think
You're my first Sam girlfriend.
I converted one of our Sam girls to Supernatural because we knew each other. Christy and I knew each other from the Glee
Oh,
fandom and the Darren fandom,
oh, that's right.
Darren Chris.
Oh.
And I was like, would you like another sad show that makes you want to scream every week? And so then I ushered her into our chaos. And
Good.
mine is very similar to yours, obviously. Like you were on Tumblr before me. I got a Tumblr December 2010. Like that's so long ago.
I know. Oh my gosh.
And I don't know why. I think I was just like, I need to go somewhere where I can talk to people about Lord of the Rings because I just wanted to be in a fandom. And then when I started watching Supernatural, I was like, I can't wait to like finish and like go into the Supernatural tags on Tumblr. And I think what was really shocking to me is that so much of what I was seeing was like either people having to defend Sam because people like the fandom is weirdly anti-Sam on Tumblr. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't say in real life, like if you were to meet like people in real life who like Supernatural, most of them like the brothers equally, or you have Sam girls or you have Dean girls, and it's not a big deal. But online, like you can't have a fandom without fandom wars. And
I
I was
know.
like,
I know.
I was in the trenches. We were in the
We
trenches.
were in the wars. It was I still have flashbacks to those times.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Rewatching and recapping, we're just gonna be like, oh my God.
We're gonna have, we're gonna have to take regular breaks.
Would dig back into my meta tags.
Oh my gosh, the
We would write
meta.
like pages and pages of meta, which was basically just it's just basically scholarly like level essays that we could probably have turned into a professor, but are that are about supernatural and specifically like the dynamics of the characters and like why things that we think are true based on the text, which is the TV
Yeah.
show. And then like
What is the narrative trying to say about this person's decision, even though this person's decision ends up being the correct one, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah, and we
yeah,
talk about
it's
it in terms of like the Doylist like view, which is like the
versus
author,
the
the
Watsonian.
Watsonian view, which is like the character. We
Oh
were
my gosh. I did so much more actual like literary analysis during the supernatural fandom wars
yes.
than I ever did in like college.
And I knew literally, and I knew when we were going through all that and doing all that, and we were just so fiery. And like, I think there were just times we couldn't not do it. Our fingers were flying across those keyboards that I
Oh my
had
God.
to meticulously tag that shit because I was like, one day I'm gonna want to come back to all this for some reason. I don't know why. So it's all like perfectly archived on my Tumblr.
Yeah.
And so when we're going through this, I'm like rewatching and recapping and discussing episodes. I'm sure I will be
Yeah.
dragging those tags out, dust that dust off the top. And like,
I wish I had known more about like live blogging and stuff while I was watching it, because then I would have that to go back to because it would be interesting to see. Like now we're rewatching.
yeah,
What were my initial thoughts during
yeah.
this? I would love to kind of have a record of that.
After I started Supernaturals, when I decided to live blog other shows, because I realized, dang, that would have been so cool. I kind of live blogged my first time through Supernatural, and I did tag it a little bit, but not enough for season one for it to even be like fun to like talk about. But I have my rewatch for I believe when you consume media, you can watch it for the first time and be like, that is special. And then your second time to watch it is kind of like your first time, but it's now you know what's going to happen. So it still counts as kind of a first watch. So when I rewatched it for the first time, I like tagged it all. So I do
Oh,
have that like tagged and like archived as well.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, no. And none of the time I have not live blogged any of the times I've rewatched.
Well,
I've
maybe this
rewatched it a
time
bunch.
you'll just have a bunch of podcasts you can listen to and be like, that's what I thought.
That'll be fantastic. I do remember, I don't remember what post it was, but I remember the feeling the first time I read a post that was an anti-Sam post because I had no idea it existed. And
Yeah, same.
I just read it and like my heart dropped for some reason. Like I was already so invested in this character that I was just like, what? And then I just and I was even told at one point, "Oh, you like Sam? Oh, okay. Well, um, that's cool. A character comes along in season 3 that you're just gonna love, or season 4."
It's
And
season 4.
I was like, "Oh, um, am I not gonna keep liking Sam? Like,
I
what
know, I know what
happens in
you're
this
talking about.
show?" And then I read like really kind of scathing thing about the character, and I was like, I don't know what show. We're not watching the same show.
That is exactly how I felt. I remember like feeling attacked like personally because I was like,
Yes.
I'm caught up and now I get to enjoy this thing with everyone. And there was the weirdest vitriol I've ever seen. I do think that it comes from like the Super Hulock fandom kind of becoming its own like weird monster on Tumblr. And
Oh
so it
yeah.
kind of pre-informed some people's like, hey, watch this for season 4 on, because if you like this type of dynamic, then you should come for the character that only appears for its first time in season 4, Castiel. And then
Yeah.
like so people would watch it and wishing they could get to that and skip. They just like didn't care
Just
to
kind of like
watch the
powering
actual.
through 1 through 3. If they
Yes.
even some people didn't even watch 1 through 3, like
Which is like that's the basis of the show. Like,
right, right. But if they're coming from this other background where people are like, "Oh, that's like you said, that's the dynamic you like. Cool, you're gonna love season 4 on." And so they already
mhm.
have it in their head, like everything else is just build up to the thing that I'm waiting for.
Yeah. And so I think when I think especially when we as Sam fans came in to Tumblr specifically, because that was like I would say like the most the trenchiest place of for all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It was like getting hit. I felt like I ran into a brick wall because I was just like,
Yeah.
oh wait,
Because the
that's
conversation was already happening.
yeah,
And we were just like babes in the woods jumping into the deep end.
yeah,
Like what? I didn't realize somebody could hate a character this much, especially a character that I love this much.
yes,
Like, and now people are going back and forth, and there's like a huge thread about it, and people
yeah.
are quoting other people's posts and then making rebuttals. And I was just like, I feel sad, like sad,
I felt
genuinely.
so sad. And then I also felt like I was seeing crazy pills because I was just like, what are y'all talking about? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
it was
and
wild.
then we got into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Then we jumped in and I found people like Elle and then like a ton of really smart Sam friends who were like, we're not gonna take this shit lying down. Like, let's dig in. And that's basically why we ended up, writing so much meta and being so fierce online. We were kind of pissed because we were like, we wanted to enjoy this thing. But coming into a show like that late also is
Yeah,
tough because
it's
that
hard
kind of fandom is already established and it was already kind of established as a like the Destiel like segment of that
already.
fandom. They
That was
already were
already.
established and
Hmm.
they were already kind of like being like, oh, we're the flagship of this fandom. Like we are the fandom is
Yes.
Destiel shippers. And so Sam is secondary. And I came in and I was like, I kind of just want to be the fan of the show that I just saw, not the one you guys are like telling me that I saw.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing of that's another example of people coming in looking for the specific thing they've been told about. I have heard from actual real life people that they thought going into it that Destiel was real.
Yeah, I mean, they
And
were told that it was. They were
yeah,
probably
because they were
suggested or
told that it
recommended
was.
that this you
Yeah,
should watch this for this.
watch this for the gay angel. And then, of course, somebody would watch it, see, oh, it's not actually written that way. That's just something that you can infer if you want to.
Right.
And now I feel like a bait and switch, and I feel, I
Like,
can,
yeah.
yeah.
like lied to.
Lied to. Yeah.
A lot of people felt that way and they would take it out on the show, and I'd be like, you should take it out on your friend who misrepresented what the show is. Because that's what we're
Lied
gonna
to
do.
you.
We're gonna go through the entire, as many seasons as we can stomach doing this, as I would love to do at least through the first 5 seasons, which is what the original creator
The
wanted
original. Mhm.
to be. And it's the first 3 seasons is very explicitly like, we are about brothers, and that is the show. Like, we almost
Mhm.
ended at season 3 because of the writer's strike. There might not have ever been a Castiel, you know?
Right.
So, anyways, all that to say, we're doing the pilot. Are you ready to talk about the episode?
I am. I am.
Pull up in my notes too. I just
Got
have
my
like a page
notes.
and a half. Like, it's not too bad. Like, typed.
And that's about how much I have.
Okay, good. All right. So, obviously, if you're listening to this recap podcast, like, you probably have already watched the series, I would hope, because why would
Yeah.
you give a fuck
We're
what we
gonna
have to say?
spoil everything if you haven't seen it.
But all that to say, the pilot, I'm gonna recap real fast, and then we're gonna get into what we think of it. So it starts with Winchester lore, which I forgot we there that exists, because the show gets so far away from that eventually that it just like almost like doesn't matter for so many seasons. But we see Mary die, and we
Mhm.
see the boys traumatized, and then
Oh
we
God.
flash forward and Sam is at college. Dean comes and grabs him, says, Dad's been on a hunting trip and he helped me find him. He hasn't come home in a few days. And so we have is it kind of like the La Lorena story, the woman in white?
It's the woman in white. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the woman who, like, her children died, and
She killed her children
that's right.
in and I actually I wrote a little bit about this because I found it to be a really kind of beautiful and tragic story, sort of told very efficiently. And we can get into it later, but yeah, she killed her children and then was afraid to go back home.
And so she jumped off a bridge.
She jumped off a bridge
And
and
so her
became a woman in white.
and so her ghost kind of haunts men, and
Mhm.
like tries to get them to take her like hitchhiking home, and then she kills them. And I guess they have to be unfaithful, because
Yes.
the whole thing later is that Sam, she has to like non-con Sam into kissing her, like making it seem like he was unfaithful to his girlfriend for her to make him a victim.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then at
She
the
had to
end
get
of,
him on a technicality.
God, what a jerk. And so
Wow.
and then obviously, to kick off the whole series, Sam gets home in time for his interview with the law school, but he finds that his girlfriend Jess has been murdered just the same way as his mother was killed in the flashback at the beginning. And so he decides to go on the road with Dean, and that is that's the pilot. It's very
Right.
upsetting.
We've got work to do. Right.
Oh, and it was so much therapy to have.
Oh gosh.
Do you want to start us off with some of your thoughts that you wrote down?
Okay. So I'm gonna let me see if I can find some actual interesting thoughts because like I said, I kind of live blogged this into a document. Um, so I I had to just make a quick note that, if John wasn't just passed out downstairs in a chair, she would have known immediately that Sam was in trouble. But instead, I guess John doesn't sleep upstairs with his wife, but okay.
No, he was just like downstairs watching TV for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
he was passed out in the chair with the TV on. Yeah, but anyway, that's just that's just a John
it's we're,
thing.
we have issues with John, okay? Like, we've
So,
discussed this at length. We have issues
we,
with John.
we have issues with John. We can go into that in a episode that actually has John in it, but I just had to point that out.
We'll have to wait because he's an absent father, but it's fine.
Right. But the nature of his fathering, yeah. I
Yeah.
also think I know that in another ep, probably the music will get talked about. I lost couldn't find my DVDs, so I had to watch the streaming music.
Oh, it's
Um,
awful. I did too.
so I don't have any specifics. I had to put up with the fake music. So, but I would love to hear a conversation about the music changes, what the
Vic
original
Vic
music.
has the she has the DVD, so she'll be able to
Yeah,
talk to us about
yeah.
that.
So I'm excited to hear that conversation with you and Vic. As a good pilot should, it lays out everything that comes after. Like
Yes.
down to I noted it, Sam says when Dean is like, you want a normal life, and Sam says, not normal, safe. And then in the context of the whole rest of the series, when everyone is saying that Sam wants normal, I think that line gets forgotten because
Yes.
he
Well,
knows he's never going to get normal.
yes. And they, a lot of times when we were in arguments with people, I feel like a lot of people would purposefully like misremember things. But the idea that a man, I don't want to call him a boy, though he is a boy, he's 22, but like a
It's my
man,
small child.
my small giant child, um, like the idea that someone would want to find a safe place after the kind of ridiculous trauma that he had growing up and like specifically felt like I guess responsible for because it was him that all of the chaos kind of surrounded. Like that's
Mhm.
totally normal. I feel like that's totally understandable.
I think it's completely understandable, and I think people forget that he doesn't want like an apple pie. Like even Dean forgets that in later seasons, that
Right.
he wants him to have like what the apple pie life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam just wants to be safe because he has never been safe. He knows that he doesn't get normal before he even finds out about his destiny or whatever.
Right.
He doesn't, so he doesn't want normal. He wants safe. He's been unsafe his entire life, and nothing Dean did as the older brother to protect him as a child himself
Right.
actually made Sam feel safe. I mean,
Right.
kudos on Dean for trying, but
He was
it
a
didn't
child
work.
himself. Yeah, he
Yeah, he
tried to
was a
tell.
child himself, and it didn't work. Sam was never safe. And if you read um John's journal, I mean, you just find out all kinds of
Yeah. That's like a
crazy crap that
literal
happened to
like
Sam.
companion book for the series, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so, yeah, if you take that in as canon, like yikes. A
Yes.
lot of yikes are in that. Um
So, mhm.
I'm with you. I I started the episode thinking like I don't know what I expected, but I always forget that like the show is about the boys. Because it does stray so much away from
Yeah.
that later. And so I was honestly thinking I was gonna start it and we were in a case and I was like, oh no, we're going to the
Right.
Winchester's house before anything happens.
Right.
And I also forgot how genuinely scary the show was.
Oh my gosh.
It's like
Yeah.
an actual horror series. And I forget that too, because they stray from that. Like after they introduce, and we'll to get into this years from now, but once they introduce like the spiritual stuff and the religious stuff, they kind of get away from the
It
horror stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't scare me. I mean the first, well, yeah, we'll talk about it later. The first entrance of an angel, and that is kind of frightening, but it
It's
doesn't
frightening. Yeah.
they don't stay scary. So,
Mm-mm. No, I think like it does have to do with the showrunner and just like the vibes, but like it starts out so well. Like there's a silhouette in a window over Sam's bed, and you can't tell
oh,
like who it is. And Mary's like, John, hey, and then goes down and sees John in the chair. And so she
I mean, you
realizes,
get that visceral, oh
oh,
shit, something's wrong.
well,
Oh,
then
sorry.
she
Are
runs
we allowed
upstairs.
to
Oh, yeah,
cuss
I
on
said
this?
fuck like 3 times already. You're fine.
Oh, okay, great, great. Good, good, good.
You're fine.
That's necessary. That's going to be a necessary word.
Well, especially because these two boys for sure would say fuck like regularly, and
For
it's
sure.
so sad they
Well,
were
we
on like the WB and couldn't.
right. Well, and we saw that during that Ghost Hunter episode, and they had to bleep out like every other word Dean says.
That's one of my favorite episodes. I can't wait till we get to that one day because it is it's exactly like they get to like fly high, like
Yeah.
exactly who they are. But then, anyways, when Mary runs back upstairs, or whenever John runs upstairs to find Mary because she screams, he goes in and she's gone. And that
Yeah.
is very scary, only for like a drop of blood to fall on him. And you're like, what the fuck? And when he
Falls on
looks
the pillow next to baby Sam's
next to our
head.
young son, Sam,
Oh,
and then you look up and it's like, I'm genuinely, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I think Mary on the ceiling with that mouth agape and her eyes just transfixed is one of the scariest images I've ever seen. And then when she becomes engulfed in flames with like her stomach wound, it's so
oh,
terrifying. And I think we take it for granted because it is supernatural lore, but that is genuinely such a terrifying thing. And I don't think I've seen it really in horror movies. Like it's not a tableau I've seen often. So I just think like kudos for them. They're creating a horror series and they
yeah.
start with a very
With horror,
yes.
yes. I actually tried to show this show to a friend, and that's where she quit.
She was like, "Oh no, no, no."
Nope, I'm done.
You mentioned Sam's entrance into the series and how that was like the moment you knew. And I actually made a note in my notes about Jared Padalecki's like he like is inside a doorway and he goes bloop and he pops his little head out. And I was like, oh my God. What like that is so cute. Like
It's like so adorable.
we never stood a chance.
No, we really didn't. And his first wasn't his first line like, "Do I have to?" or
Do
something
I
like
have to?
that.
You know how I feel about Halloween. And we're like, is it because your mom was
Oh,
murdered on the ceiling?
because you're in a show called Supernatural. Ooh.
But one thing I did say was because the best friend that they go and have shots with where they're celebrating Sam Winchester's LSAT scores, which by the way, Tumblr will always remind me that Elle Woods made a higher score than Sam Winchester on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
LSATs.
They love
Um,
they love to remind
hey,
people of that. I
a
mean,
queen walks among us.
that's, I don't think it's bad to come in second place to Elwood's. So,
No, of course she's iconic. But
right?
the friend who goes and they have tequila shots together, I love him. I love Jess and like how concerned and sweet she is to him
She's
and
so
that
cute.
she's so proud of him and she's
Oh,
just like you're going to kill that interview on Monday. You're going to nail it. It's going to be so great. You're the best. And they're like tequila shots and I'm just like this is so sweet and it feels very sincere. Like, sometimes when they
yeah.
try to like write a scene like that, it can kind of feel like
It
disingenuous where you're like, ha ha, we're all friends. It
it
felt very lived
feels,
in.
yes, it
Hmm.
felt lived in. It feels like Sam has formed a found family
Hmm.
who know him and that this all feels comfortable.
Yes. And they care about him.
Yes.
I feel like, and that's one of the things too, because I think with I think with the dialogue with Dean, where he's like, does Jess know about your past? And Sam is like, no, and she's never going to. Like, there's an argument to make that's like, does Sam lie all the time? And like I think what they're able to establish in the early like that scene before we even meet Dean is that he has a genuine family there. I think that's important because otherwise you could question like is he a sociopath? Like is he just lying to these people? Like what are we do? No, he's genuinely himself. He just doesn't want the thing that he feels is a toxic presence in his life to clutter up the type of life he's trying to build for himself. And I think
Mhm.
that was an important thing they had to establish. And they did it with very little. So I don't know. I just feel like I'm very impressed with what they were able to do with so little and how quickly it moved because I genuinely do wish that there had been a
Very
little bit
efficient,
more time with them.
efficient storytelling.
Yeah, they did
Oh,
great.
and speaking of Jess and how supportive she was of Sam, I just love how when Dean does like break into their house, uh, Jess is like standing in the doorway, like, "Is this guy bothering you?
Oh, are you Dean the brother? Like
I will throw you out if I have
knows
to."
like he's kind of a dick.
Like Sam has mentioned just enough about you that I know.
Mm-hmm. And I love that she's protective. Like I feel
She's so
like
protective of him.
I don't think that they meant to do this because they couldn't possibly understand the kind of fandom that this place would have, this
Right.
show would have. But I do feel like Jess is very like a presence that a lot of us Sam girls are like, yes, thank you. Because, it's terrible what happens to her. And we're all just like, God. But like, I love seeing a moment where someone is genuinely concerned, genuinely worried about his happiness, his well-being, and is proud of him and makes like forces him to like be like, no, you did good. We need to celebrate. Like,
Right.
because he never
Yes.
does that. After this episode, we never get that again.
Oh, I know.
It's devastating.
Oh, okay.
As
I'm
Sam
sad
girl.
now.
It's very sad.
Okay, so Dean's entrance breaking into this, it's breaking into their apartment, right? It's the first time we really meet Dean,
Yeah. The
right?
first time you see him, he's silhouetted, his little spiky, floofy hair is like
And
against the window.
I'm sorry, I just love um the whole scene because like Sam creeps out of bed because his hunter instincts are always there. So he just wakes up and then he gets out of bed and he's all like slinking around like like a prowler. And I can never get over their little tussle.
I know.
And um I can't get over Easy Tiger. And
Dean
I
is
can't
always flirting. Like, no matter
I
who is
know.
with him, he's always flirting.
And I love where Dean gets him down, wrestles him
Mhm.
to the ground. He's like, I forget what he says, lost your touch or something like that.
He's like out of practice.
And Sam just reverses it like instantly. And he's like, or
Maybe
not.
not. I love it so much.
I love that whole interaction.
Yes, I think Dean's intro as like a criminal, like B&E, and
He
his
broke into his family's house.
yeah,
Like,
and his first line is like playfully making fun of Sam, of course. Like it's just I feel like to see the two of them for the first time, their intros were exactly like perfect for kind of who they are. I think they just it's something, and I'm not trying to be millennial about it. I am 38, sorry. But like there's just something about the early 2000s like script and like
yes,
vibes. You can't there's something great about it. I don't know. I'm sorry.
it's just great.
There's
Yeah.
something about
This
it.
was 2005, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
babies. Like they were filming
Children.
this when I was graduating high school. Like
Oh
again,
my gosh.
I like oh, and I also one of my notes was I think I used to call young Dean a fluffy duckling. I don't think I can explain why, but it still fits.
Yeah, it does. It does. And
He's
the
just so cute.
brotherness
Yes.
really came through. Like
That was another note I said. I said I love them being brothery brothers.
brothery brothers. Um, so yeah, I saw someone reference this as like Sam's dorm room goes up in flames, and this isn't a dorm room.
No, it's an
And he and
apartment.
Jess are sleeping in the same bed.
Hmm.
I don't know if one of them is sleeping over with the other or if they rented an apartment together.
I think they lived together because she had made him cookies. I miss you cookies for when he got home. And
Yeah.
I that was her house. Like she was walking around in those little hot shorts, like sleeping. And I
Yeah.
really feel like they rented an apartment together.
I
And
think so
maybe
too.
even rented a duplex where it was like a house. Cause I don't know if it was on the bottom floor or if it was just like they had a house so you enter just at ground level, but it was more reasonably priced to rent a house back then. So they
That's
probably
true.
did do that. And he was looking at going to graduate school. He's looking at going to law school. So they were older. They probably had enough, like a job and some money that they were able to do that.
Yeah. I was just noting like I didn't live with a significant other until I was like in my 30s.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm gonna start a life. Let's do it. Like
Yeah.
I'm graduated college, I'm gonna go to law school, and I'm probably gonna marry this lady.
He was
Like,
ready to have a safe life and lock it down. And like, I, I don't think it was a dorm.
mm-mm.
I do think that based on how she kind of interacts with the space, it was their space. I can't imagine she would act like that if it was like a boys' dorm and like some other random dudes could just be around.
Right, right. Or if like he rented that house by himself and she was just sleeping over.
Yeah, could have been. That would
Could have been,
be
but it's
difficult as
not.
a student.
Yeah. You can't live alone as a student unless you've got family money or something. And
And they
Sam
don't.
very distinctly does not.
They very distinctly don't.
They do not have that. Sam doesn't even have a family at that point.
Mm-mm.
He's
No.
he's been disowned.
Yeah, they had been estranged. I think at one point Dean said, "Hey, I haven't bothered you or asked you for anything for 3 years," as if that was like a favor. And I was
Hmm.
like, these boys have not spoken in 3 years. Like, and the way that like Dean and John view it is, well, you left. And I just think of Sam being like, y'all didn't reach out. You could have reached out. I was literally
Right.
calling.
I
Like,
just
it
because I
hurts
left
me.
doesn't mean I didn't want you to like visit for three
Yeah.
years. That isolating me from the only family I have was not a favor. Thanks
Yeah.
anyway.
Especially that, and they do this thing with the dialogue in this episode where they have to give us a lot of exposition, but it never feels like exposition. Like
Yes,
Jared
yes.
has to deliver a lot of lines that are like, well, remember after mom died and these things happened all this time. He has to like summarize their entire childhood in like 5 lines and make it sound like he's not saying this is exposition. He does a
Right.
great job. And then,
They do a lot of that efficient storytelling. Like
mhm,
you can get an idea of how this family was affected by their mom's death just in that one scene where they're on the bridge
yes,
trying to hunt down this ghost. And Sam says something like, I never even met her. She's dead and
yeah,
she's not coming back.
yeah.
And Dean slams him up against one of the like posts of the bridge. And that is 30 seconds to tell us this family did not talk about mom.
Yes. Yes. He says, I don't even remember what she looks like without a photo.
Yeah.
And I, oh, which is to me, that's so telling too, that like John was so obsessed with his own pain that he didn't try to even keep the memory of Mary alive for his kids in a way that was like loving and like I want to say healthy, but like nobody in this show is healthy.
No,
But like
there's no healthy people here.
not one. But like it's very clear that whatever John's choices have always been for the boys is very self-centered for him. His rage, his like mission, what he deems to be important, and nothing to do about taking care of the boys or making them feel safe or loved or of worth in any capacity outside of kill the bad things, hunt the bad things, save the people, find the thing that killed mom.
Risk your
And
own life to save the people. Your
yeah,
life isn't worth as much as theirs. Like, I'm sure
yeah,
he didn't mean to impart that message, but that's the message,
yeah.
you know?
I can't, it's hard for me to give him any grace at all. I'm like, yeah, I didn't mean to, but like, hello. It's
I
not
know.
rocket science, John.
I know. I That was yeah, that was one thing. They find all of John's stuff in that empty hotel room.
Yeah.
Wouldn't John have cleaned up after himself?
That's what I
Like
was wondering. I was like,
he did he intentionally leave that there because he knew the boys would come after him, or at least Dean would.
he
He
would leave like little
also,
bread crumbs for them to follow him.
yeah, but I mean, anybody could have walked into that room and seen all that weird shit on the walls, right?
Right.
And he also, the after they arrest Dean,
They
they,
arrest him because of that room because they're like, what
because
about
of
these
that room,
missing people
and
all over the
they've
walls?
confiscated at that point John's journal.
Yes.
Like,
I
he
either feel
wouldn't want
like
that to fall into the hands of anybody.
no. And I feel like that comes down to either the writers kind of wanting to show us what it looks like to hunt before we get an actual like that's more exposition, right? Like
Yeah,
Sam picks
yeah.
up the salt and he's like, salt, that because it means
Oh,
this and this. And we're like, oh, we're learning about hunting. But also it makes it feel like John had to leave quick. Like someone was on his tail, he's in danger. That heightens suspense.
that's
But
true. Yeah.
also, it could be that because I do feel like John is reckless and careless about his sons and could do something like that and be like, here's where I've been. You guys figure it out and fend for yourself if the police get involved.
And we do have evidence that he does that explicitly when he leaves Dean the coordinates
Yep.
in the journal.
The
So,
coordinates and no other context. He can't just
right,
say, "Hey, buddy, come here for this reason." He's
come
like,
here.
"Decode this. Your father doesn't love you very much." Like, literally, I'm an asshole.
That's
Anyways,
that's that's all packed into those 5 numbers. Yeah.
honestly, it does feel like that to me. Like that's such a rude ass thing to do. Just tell your son you love him and tell him where to come find you.
I know, right? I know. So,
Anyways. Oh,
yeah.
one of the lines too is like, and this is early in the episode, but it kind of goes along with what you're saying about the bridge where Sam goes, I was handed a 45, like, because I was scared of the dark. And Dean was like, well, duh, you should be scared of the dark. And Sam's like, I was 9. And I laugh like every time because I'm just like, that is pretty fucked up. But like, Dean's like,
It's so fucked up. But Dean is just
duh,
like,
obviously
obviously,
this is
you need a gun.
normal. And that, I mean, just those exchanges, I feel like in any other show would seem like kind of corny, but they sell it so well because you can tell that Jensen buys into it. Like Dean Dean believes it. And it's the kind of belief, like it's the kind of delivery of that kind of line where you're like, that's stupid. No one should believe that. Where you're like, this poor man, like, has been so traumatized and he's been so like led by someone he loves so much that he does believe this.
Well, and he has evidence that it's true that you need to watch out for yourself in the dark.
Right. I mean, it's not
Maybe
true
that
that a
it's
9-year-old
not
needs a
true that a
gun.
9-year-old needs a gun,
Right.
but it is true that a 9-year-old needs protection.
100%.
So he's, dad taught you how to use a gun early. Good. You
Mm-hmm.
needed it. Like
Exactly.
it kept you safe. So congratulations to dad, I guess. Like and you're right. It's Jensen commits to the idea that Dean is completely on board this hunting train, following dad, doing whatever it needs to be done, living off the grid, living in motel rooms. Dean has is convinced, fully believes that that is the way to live because he has more information than other people do.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what's out there. It's no longer important to him, if it ever was, to hold down a regular job and get a girlfriend. That's not important to him because
Yeah.
vampires exist. Like
Yeah.
I can't say that
Never
I
had a
wouldn't feel the
chance.
same way. I
He never
know.
had a chance. And I think,
Neither of them did
and
really.
that's really what the tragedy of the show is that like you have two diametrically opposed boys thrown into a situation where like Dean is like, well, I know this, so that means I have a duty to do something about it because no one else knows. And Sam is thrown into the situation and he's like, I know this and I never asked to know this and I want a choice and I don't want to have to choose this. And
Hmm.
so and I feel like both are honestly reasonable and understandable reactions to the scenario. I think like attaching morality to one or the other, I think, and this is just me being again a millennial about it, but I think it's a really boomer idea that like we have that like duty before self. Um, insofar as like obviously we should all be selfless and caring for each other,
Right.
but we also have a right to autonomy and like setting boundaries so that if there is something that's toxic in our life, we should be able to say, I want to extract myself from that. And
Yeah.
that is the ongoing argument of the entire, I would say the thesis of the show
Yeah.
from here on out is that discussion.
Yeah. And like we said before, Sam wants safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's his goal in life because
I
he
want to
hasn't ever had
disentangle
it.
from this. Yeah. I want to
Yeah.
disentangle from the thing that has always made me feel unsafe and upset.
By the by the way, do you think that John took on a hunt in this area so that he could check up on Sam? Because they're not far from where Sam is.
That's true. I think that if we were going to give the writers a lot of credit, possibly.
Well,
Um,
yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't think he was checking up on Sam to make sure he's okay. But based on some of the things John thinks about Sam, probably like, is
Oh
he
my God.
turning evil or
Yes. Well, I think that like, okay, so if y'all don't know, Ella's a writer. Like, can you tell? Like she thinks through every little thing, like about every little character, every like motivation. I never considered that. I honestly don't even think that the writers would have thought that far ahead, just because this is the pilot. And
that's probably true.
it was probably just really convenient that the hunt was like a few like whatever.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe it did, but it totally works for what will be revealed about Sam later. So
Yeah.
let's just say yes.
Eric Kripke had I assume this is what I've always read. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but all 5 of the seasons kind of planned and plotted out, right? So,
Yeah, I think that was the lore originally, is that he had planned it through five and that he wanted to see it like the arc come to fruition. And then when it did, he was like, cool, I'll pass it on.
yeah, I thought he wanted it to end at 5,
They were like,
which
no, it's a moneymaker. We're gonna keep going. And he was like, cool, but goodbye.
also I would have been very sad if it ended at 5, for reasons that we can talk about when we talk about 5.
Same. I also want season six because we get Soul Sam and he's hot. So
Oh my God. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
we will also
We'll
I'm
talk
hoping that we
about
can
that
get as
later.
far in the series as possible because I really want to talk about like Soul of Sam one day. Okay.
Oh my God.
So back to our discussion on the episode.
Okay. So Sam goes to the woman in white's husband. Interestingly, Dean gets sidelined in this
Yes.
episode.
Yeah,
He
he's
gets arrested,
arrested.
and Sam, and I understand why they do this, because Dean, as we learn in earlier in the episode, he's been hunting. So now we have to see if Sam still has the
Yes.
mojo, right?
And
So
that's
they
exactly what
take
I thought. I was like,
yes,
resourceful, look at him go.
yes. So, but the thing that really got me about him going to the woman in white's husband
Hmm.
is it's it's somewhat rare for them to just come out and say something about a supernatural creature after 30 seconds of conversation with someone. But this dude is just like a smidget shifty, and Sam's like, okay, he's about to walk away. And then he just turns around and he's like, have you ever heard of a woman in white? Like he is just like, this dude is lying. He seems like a jackass who probably cheated on his wife. I'm calling this dude out.
He's
Like
so intuitive.
he's so intuitive.
Yes.
Like I he tags that dude within minutes and is
And
just
this
like,
is why he's the personable person. He's the researcher, like that moment when he pushes Dean's rolly chair out of the way so he can do a better search at the library is
I love that.
one of my favorite moments and officially becomes that is the first time he becomes the official researcher of the two. And I
Yeah.
think that his intuition and his ability to like talk to people, interview people, but also read people in the way that he does is why he's good at like interpersonal like things. Like obviously Dean is really good, like he's really charismatic and flirtatious, but when it comes to like being comforting, when it comes to like being able to get people to talk, like that is Sam.
First of all, the jump scare of when Sam speeds through the woman in white on the road. He's like, I think he's on the phone with Dean at the
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees her, slams on the brakes, he goes right through her. Every fucking time I am
Yeah.
I know it's coming
Mm-hmm.
every single time. The way that they treat these early episodes like their own individual horror movies,
Yes.
with the lighting that they choose, the color palettes that they choose,
Mm-hmm.
the framing of the shots is
Yeah.
sometimes so beautiful.
It's
Like
so
a
it's so good.
silhouette of a person with like a light in the background. There's so much that's just beautiful about
Mm-hmm.
some of these early episodes, and this episode is no exception.
I agree. I it's it was much more episodic at first. I
Hmm.
remember, like, because they're trying to sell you a horror show, and we don't know Sam and Dean. We don't know them yet. We don't love them yet. So they're like, well, we got to make these stories really cool and pop. And they really do. They do
They
such a good job.
really do. The the this the part where, so skipping ahead to where he gets her into the house,
Yeah.
um when
So smart.
she's finally in the house and she turns and the water is pouring down the stairs. There's a
Mm-mm.
shot of the water that comes down the side of the wooden staircase, and she looks and she is distraught.
Yes.
And I am like, we got maybe a few minutes of screen time from her,
Mm-hmm.
2 seconds of screen time from the silhouette of the kids at the top of the stairs. And yet that story was so affecting
Yes.
because she there's the lighting behind the children that sets the scene, the water that runs down the stairs. We know virtually nothing about this woman and her pain or the grief that drove her to this terrible act of killing her children. But in the midst of a pilot episode where we have to set out all of the characters, their issues, their drives, and just stuff about the
Yeah.
world,
And set up the series. Yeah.
and set up the series, we are still able to get this story uh, about this like heart-wrenching event where her husband cheated on her. Of course, he's the only one who gets to live.
Yeah. That's how
Of
it goes.
course,
And Supernatural has a lot of women
that's
in
how it
shoes,
goes.
and they set them
So,
up here. Three
yeah.
women die in the first episode.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You're
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. So yeah, but they, I mean, maybe that story
Mm-hmm.
gets in total 5 minutes of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
But in that 5 minutes, she is so good that and the cinematography is so good
Mm-hmm.
that you get a whole horror movie that actually affects you. Which
Yes.
horror movies don't affect me except by making me scared to be in my house by
Right.
myself at nighttime. Like, but a horror story that can also make me just feel
Mm-hmm.
empathy is the only kind of horror story I like, frankly. Um, but yeah, I also want to talk about the whole scene in the car, which is
Yeah.
going back a little bit, but
No, it's fine. We're kind of jumping around. The reason I recapped it at first is so I could be like, here's how it is chronologically. We're
right, we're gonna jump
jump
around.
around.
So the mechanics of how this ghost is able to ensnare Sam.
Mm-hmm.
The first guy that she attacks is like, I have a girlfriend. And she's like, you want to go back to my place? And he's like, hell yeah. And they just
Right.
go. Like
She didn't have to try that
he
hard.
doesn't have to try. So she doesn't press any like temptation on him or actual ghost lips on him. And it's interesting that in the pilot, the way that the narrative chooses to endanger one of the brothers is to grab Sam, threaten him with the thing that he has, which is step one to being safe, which is Jess. Like
Yes.
the only reason that he's a candidate for this is because he has Jess.
Mm-hmm.
And then the narrative that the writers make the rules of this haunt that he has to cheat.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the writers don't want to taint their main character with
Yeah.
cheating, but they still chose to make that be the thing. So she has to get him on a technicality,
Right.
which means um
Non-con, non-con, non-con,
right, which
which I wrote in all caps.
kind of like sets him up for the entire, because
That's
I
exactly what I
know
said, Elle. That's
it's like,
exactly what I wrote down.
I mean, maybe the writers weren't intending to set it up that way, but if nothing else, they know that Sam is destined for possession by Lucifer at the end,
I literally wrote
right?
Sam never even had a moment of agency over his body without someone trying to non-con him. Episode one.
Episode one, straight out
Mm-hmm.
of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I watched that and I'm just like, even they wanted that to happen so badly that they weren't even willing to re-engineer the hunt because they
Mm-hmm.
had to the allure of making Jess the fulcrum of his whole encounter with the lady in white, the woman in white, and
Mm-hmm.
then killing Jess off
Mm-hmm.
is just like too telling of the whole rest of the story, which is what a good
Oh,
pilot or opening chapter should do,
yes,
right?
it's such a good pilot because
Yeah. It's
damn.
a really good pilot.
And
So
that's just devastating to just
oh,
when you put it like that, like how fucking devastating is that? Especially when you consider later the yellow-eyed demon is going to talk a little bit more about Jess and like the
oh,
stuff that has been lined up for Sam. But like, wow, what a thing to point out and link it to his future. I mean, I was just complaining about it because I was like, oh, it's my prime, but you were like, thematically speaking.
I'm not that smart in real life.
So after
Good.
that, they do end up taking down Miss Lady.
Yes.
Um, why don't you take point on the ending?
Oh, you're gonna make me remember the ending. Got it. Um, so
Well, I mean, I know that like um after they in the hunt and he goes back, he
oh, that
has to,
ending. I
yeah,
was
that's what I
like,
mean.
how does the hunt end? Because I know Dean somehow gets into the house and Sam drives a car into the
Hmm.
house. Okay, so
They do get her on it. They do get her. They have to
they get
trick her,
yeah,
and
they
they
get the woman
do.
in white and
Hmm.
and she gets got. Her
He
story's
got.
over.
Mhm.
And Dean suggests I think going to the coordinates that Dad put, right?
Yeah, he's like, come on, we
And
could keep
come
doing
on.
this.
Oh, but we could make that by morning. And Sam's like, I
I
have an interview
can't.
in 10 hours. I and Dean is very visibly disappointed.
And it's so sad because
He's
I love young Dean. Like there
me
will come a
too.
time where, and you understand, where it'll be very difficult for me with Dean because of how he treats Sam. But I feel so deeply for him
Yeah.
in this era where it's just
And
so clear
he's
he wants family too.
D Dad has gone off.
Hmm.
Dean is alone for maybe one of the first extended periods. Well, aside from the times when Dad would leave the both of them alone as kids,
Yeah.
he's been hunting with Dad since Sam has been gone,
Yeah. It's
right?
been 4 years. Yeah.
So he's on his own. He wants family. Um, he's looking for Dad, and Sam's right there.
Yeah. And Dean is
Let's
not the
go get
kind
Sam.
to, yeah, he's not the kind to want to no chick flick moments. He's not the kind who wants to show that his vulnerability. And so
Yeah,
to ask Sam for help, that's very vulnerable. Like I'm worried about Dad. Like I don't want to admit I'm worried. I don't want to admit I'm and then of course when they're leaving each other, he's not going to want to admit
right.
that he wants Sam to come. He's like, well,
So
like we
so
could do
he's
this. It could be fun, but
yeah. So he's very disappointed, but he's like, yeah, right. Forgot all about that. Okay. And he takes him home. And it seems okay, right? It's not a big fight. It's just Dean's resigned. He knew that this was probably going to happen. He had hopes to the contrary,
yeah.
but Sam is stubborn, and Dean knows that.
And
And
Sam has
Sam has goals.
an incredible future possibly in
Sam
front of
has a
him.
support structure waiting for him, and Dean knows that Sam isn't going to deviate from that.
Yes. And he
And, and
shouldn't.
and I don't know at this point if Dean, I would like to think at this point that Dean has some kind of, yeah, this actually is a better life for him because later in the series it becomes one of his goals
Yeah.
that Sam gets a normal life, to
Hmm.
misquote Sam's desire. Um,
Right.
but and I feel like he's clearly hoping Sam will change his mind
Hmm.
because how fast does he get back into Sam's door?
Mm-hmm.
when the house catches on fire. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
had to have been sitting
He
outside
was. He
in the
was.
car.
I think that he was maybe like, okay, I don't want. Maybe he wanted to like wait and just make sure everything was cool at Sam's place. Maybe it was just a safer place to just nap before he started driving, or whatever. It's just, you have to sleep in the Impala sometimes when you're
Yeah.
hunting, and he just happened to be out there. I
I
do think it's a big like 50-50 chance. Like he also was hoping Sam would be like, oh, you're still here. Let's go in the morning.
right. I want I kind of want him to have been sitting in the car like, do I go back and talk to him? Maybe I can just spend the night because it's better than sleeping in the car. Maybe I should, and then boom, house is on fire and all bets are off.
Yep. Oh, the worst.
Oh,
Jess, no.
the
Like
little note on the
the I miss you
cookies.
cookies kill me because she loves him so much. One of my major notes is in all caps. Jess loves him so much. It's what he deserves. I am distraught because, like, it's just so sad.
It is. It is.
No.
Oh.
And so Jess is gone. It's
And
this
then Jess
the
burns.
same horrifying way that Mary burns. I'm sure. Oh, God. The worst part of it to think of for me is the fact that Sam really does believe he's gotten out. He really thinks that he's escaped that lifestyle and that he has built something new. And like systematically, like one by one, things happen to show him that's not true until like later the yellow eyed demon's going to talk to us about how like no, we've been watching you for years. And I
Right.
think
It's
that is another version of non-con, like the idea that the agency even thought he had in like escaping and building a new life was never even true. That
like
was never real.
when we learn later about Brady
Ugh.
and and all of that stuff when he is I'm remembering like a scene where he's basically surrounded by like a gallery of the people he thought were safe who
And
just
none of
weren't.
them weren't. And none
Yeah.
of them were. And oh my God, this is making me so sad. But I think we're really hitting on like some really good thematic stuff that like I think not having this conversation I might not have ever really tapped into with the pilot. So I'm so excited. I think this is so
It's a
much
good
fun.
it's a good pilot. It's a good pilot. This is a good
It's
podcast. I
so
shouldn't
good.
say that on the cut
I
that part
mean,
out.
we're nailing it. We're nailing it.
Yeah, it's only 3 hours long. It's great. It's
It's
fine.
not. It's short. I'm just kidding. Okay, so now we need to rate this fucking episode, dude. So
Okay.
we are gonna rate every episode on two scales. We're gonna do a little fashion judgment because that's hilarious. Early 2000s male fashion is very silly. And we're gonna give it an adjective each, and then we're gonna rate it each episode on a scale of Sam girl friendliness. So we've got three like categories. How much screen time does Sam have? How much joy as a Sam girl did I feel? And then just like hard eyes, how like cute, sexy, hot, awesome did Sam look the whole time? And then we'll have like a little average score from those. So Elle, do you wanna start us off with the fashion? What do you think?
Um, this was a very traditional, sort of iconic Sam fashion with his shirt and the hoodie jacket. Um, Most of the time, there's
Yeah.
nothing really stands out. Like we're not getting any, purple dog shirt or
Yeah, I love the purple doctor.
it's just your typical like if Dean was to dress up as Sam for Halloween, this is what he would wear,
Yes,
right?
it's very standard. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm thinking like I picture like a Carhartt jacket and like a hoodie underneath or whatever. I'm looking up pictures right now because I find that I just can't even picture what he was wearing through this episode.
It was like, yeah, he had that hoodie, but he was like in his pajama pants when he got his ass handed to him by Dean in the kitchen, which is really fun. I
That
decided
was nice.
that because of that scene alone, I'm giving it a genuinely good rating. That's my adjective for the fashion judgment.
Genuinely good.
It's genuinely good. I loved seeing like Sam get flipped over like feet overhead in his pajama pants. That was pretty funny.
I am on board for any barefoot Sam.
And he was barefoot in that scene.
Yes.
Little feet in
Yes.
the air,
The little feats, I
flying through
am
the air.
I will give any episode a high score just for the bare feet.
She doesn't have a foot fetish. She just thinks a very
No.
tall, slender, silly boy with feet, like not wearing shoes, is cute.
Yeah, it's not a fetish. It's just
You have to
it's
clarify on the internet.
I know you definitely do. It's a choice that sort of reveals a vulnerability.
Yes, and a relaxed feeling. I
Yes.
feel like
A
that's like
feeling of safety,
yes, I
right?
think later in the series, he's never barefoot. But then when they have the bunker, there will be times he kicks his little feet up and you're like, oh, and I
Oh,
definitely get that.
mhm.
I totally get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So so maybe we cut all the barefoot stuff out.
No, I'm gonna talk about how you're into feet now. I guess I'll do adorable. I said genuinely good. No, it's just adorable that he was in his PJs when he got his
Yeah.
brother beat him up.
How is well, and then he beat up his brother.
True.
Flipped him
Flip
right over on
in
his
his
back. He
PJs.
just
Flip that man over.
like and he was flat on his back. So from a full stop, flip that man over. So and Jensen might look short compared to Jared, but he is not.
He's 6'1", 6'2".
6'2".
Yeah, he's 6'2". And I know Jared lied about his height, right? He's 6'5", but he lied and said he was 6'4".
He did?
I
I've been
think
living
so.
my life thinking he was 6'4".
Okay, so this is a weird thing about me, but I can usually guess actors' heights. I think it's because my dad was so tall. My dad's 6'3". And so I grew up
Oh,
knowing very well how tall a 6'3" man is. And Jared is at least 2 inches taller than my dad. And I've
oh my
stood
God.
next to him many times as I used
Oh,
to
that's
blow
right.
all my money on cons.
Yes, that's
So
right.
I
You've
might be I
actually
might be speaking out of my asshole right now. And like if
no.
if we're ever lucky enough to have Jared on and he can like tell me to go fuck myself because I'm wrong, I would love for to be
I
wrong and
doubt that he
have
would
him
do
tell me
that.
that.
You
But
you
like,
be you can be like you can correct me, but only if you do it in this way. Um, what
so we've got screen
clothing
time.
scale?
Oh,
What is
this
the
the
clothing
clothing
scale?
scale. Our adjectives are horrendous, adorable, genuinely good, and terrible but great.
I think I'll go adorable as well.
Yeah, adorable. I think for a long time we'll do that because they're babies in this one.
They're such babies.
Like there is even gonna be a moment when they like reveal themselves in like FBI suits, quote unquote, even though they look like children. And I'm still gonna go like,
Oh, that's commented on in this episode when they present themselves as marshals
that's
to the
right.
police, and the police are like, "Aren't you a little young to be marshals?" And
Literal
he's like,
fetuses.
he goes, "Well, that's awful kind of you to say," or something like that. And I'm like, "Oh, that was very charming."
Such a fluffy duckling thing of him to
I
say. Okay.
know, I know. Oh, sorry, not to get
No.
back into the episode. Let's
I
get
know.
our
I'm like,
scores.
we're good. We're going there again.
I know. I have to hold back. So yeah, I'll go adorable as
We
well.
both agreed. This one's
Mhm.
adorable. Okay, so the other scale, screen time, Sam Girl Joy, and Heart Eyes, all on a scale from 1 to 5. What do you think?
Screen Sam time screen Sam time
Sammy Scream Time. Scream
Sammy's
Time?
screen
Sammy Scream Time.
Sammy's screen time. Sam's screen time I think is really good.
Me too.
In this one I'm gonna do at least like a 4,
Mm-hmm.
4.5.
Yeah.
It's not all about Sam, but he doesn't get sidelined. He is the main target of the haunt, and he's the target of the myth arc that happens in
Yeah.
this episode.
It is like quality screen time and
Yes.
it's equal screen time to Dean, if not more. So I
Yeah.
said the same thing. I was like, if the only way I can give it a higher rating is if the whole episode is just about Sam, which is very
Right.
rare. But
Right.
yeah, I'm with you. I think I gave it a 4.5 too.
Yeah. Yeah. Good quality screen time.
Sam Girl Joy.
Oh, it's so hard to label it joy when so many bad
I
things happen to
know.
Sam.
It's hard to know what I mean by this. It's like Sam
Yeah.
Girl, like we enjoy it, but also we're watching a show where our favorite character gets absolutely pummeled by life the whole time. So
So, I mean, but that's part of why we're watching it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that's like a good 4, 5
Yeah. I gave it a 5 too. Just because
because
it's so good.
there's so much like foreshadowing what is gonna happen to him and showing that he has a found family and that he's not actually he's good at getting people to care for him. He has a found family. He has
Yes.
people who want him to succeed. And so, all of those things go into like a 5 for me.
Yes. I agree. I agree. We're agreeing on this. Okay,
We're so all right.
this me and Elle, we are special. We call our couple name is Laudry because I'm Audrey and she's Elle. And we do the weird thing online where sometimes we'll say the exact same thing at the exact same time. Like what? Okay. So what did you score your
Laundry.
Laudry? What did you score your heart eyes scale for this episode?
How do you want to define heart eyes?
You get to decide for yourself
I get to
because
decide.
you get to decide. Yeah, it is not a hard and fast rule. If you're like, my favorite kind of Sam is cute little sweet baby Sam, and so it's a 5, you get to decide that.
Yeah, he is cute little baby Sam, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Barefoot.
There you go.
But also like serious and upset,
And sincere.
sincere.
Love that, Sam.
I'm do
Love that
I'm
version
do
of him.
I love that version of Sam. And also a big factor in Hard Eyes for me is when he doesn't when he is willing to give Dean shit.
Yeah.
Pushing Dean away from the computer to do the research.
So cute.
I'm gonna give this one a 5.
Okay. Ooh. Okay, so
What
L's
did you give?
overall rating. I am gonna plug mine in. Hold on. I have to type in the numbers. I'm stupid about math. I gave it a 3.
Ooh, I'd love to hear why.
Here's why. Okay, so my favorite kind of Sam is gonna be a little bit later. And my
Mm.
heart eyes bug out of my face like a cartoon character. And so I didn't heart eyes like that, though I do
Hmm.
love like I don't feel like it's slow. I just feel like it's like this general hard eyes that I would give Sam because he's so cute.
Average
And
hard
yeah.
eyes.
Yeah, it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
so sweet. It's
Not
not like,
extra hard eyes than usual.
yeah,
Just
not me like having
normal
to
hard eyes.
claw
Yeah,
my face off.
that
Like
makes
the Kristen
sense.
Wiig
Yeah.
gif I used to use on Tumblr all the time. Like, yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
in the I'm
yeah,
just like,
that's a
oh,
really good point. I might for the future I might tweak my scale a
might
little
tweak
bit
it.
because I'm trying to think of an episode. If those are my gauges for what is hard eyes, I'm never gonna not be at a 5.
It could be. Yeah. You just have to decide. It's like, and you can change it. Like
Yeah.
it never has to be that way ever again. So I'm gonna put these two averages together. So my average for this episode, what in our 5-star rating, was like a 4.16, and you gave it a 4.83, which is cool. And so I think we can go ahead and just like say this is a great episode to start a series with.
Fantastic. I
Freaking love
am
it.
I love it. I love it. This
Especially
is
as Sam girls. Like we won't always get to rate episodes this
uh-uh.
high.
This is gonna be a pretty high scoring episode.
Oh yeah. I can't wait
Um,
until we find like a 5, like just straight across 5.0. I wonder what episode it'll be.
well, it'll have to be one that has mostly Sam screen time, so that narrows the field quite a lot.
Yeah,
Quite a lot.
unless whatever episode it is has like super quality Sam time where we're just like it was so good that we just like, oh my God. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking of one right now.
Me too. I can't wait to keep doing this. Elle, thank you so much for coming on and
Thank you for
talking.
having me.
We're gonna have her on like every other episode, literally.
I
So
just have a lot of free time.
I'm so grateful that you are on the pilot episode of this podcast.
Woo! It had to be Laudry.
Hashtag Laudry.
Hashtag Laudry.
Uh,
Ah.
we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye,
We'll have
everyone.
to think of a sign off sometime. I don't have one
Yeah.
yet. Okay, bye.